Welcome to Disruptive Adventism. My name is Jose Briones, and I'll be your host for this podcast. This podcast is about discussing the polemical statements and practices that are part of the Adventist fabric, which in turn shape this belief system to be unique and relevant for today's society. During today's podcast, we will be touching upon the topic of animal care and its relationship to Adventism. It'll be a monologue, so we will try to discover why taking care of animals can help us live better lives. We'll go through a little bit of the background of the current sphere of animal care, health, and relevant topics. And then we'll shift towards understanding why Adventism seeks for a better world. Without any more preambles, let us begin. Thank you for listening today. As I said in the introduction, today we will have a monologue, and I'm going to discuss what I think is the relationship between Adventism, animal care, and some other relevant topics that kind of come up in this discussion. We will have a discussion, but that's going to come a little bit later, the next podcast. And at the end of this podcast, I'll let you know who our guest is going to be. So let's just start with the background. I think that you can agree with me that over the last 7 years, the idea of a healthier life has been trending in society. Individuals are interested in the idea of becoming more active physically through weight loss programs, CrossFit, or even just the regular gym memberships. Maybe by using Fitbits, that has been increasing the awareness of health. Social networks or apps in the Play Store or in iTunes are kind of allowing us to compete with one another to see who's the healthiest, who runs farther, or who drinks the more water. So this is a trend that's here to stay. And that's a good thing because it's allowing us to live healthier lives, right? There's another trend that kind of runs parallel to this one, and it is choosing what to eat, or what is deemed the best thing to eat. Either organic or plant-based or raw diets have been surfacing, but also other people have just stayed with their carnivore diets, and they have just decided to eat less meat because, there's documentaries, there are studies that have shown that meat is probably not the best thing for your body when consumed regularly. So maybe once upon a time is a good thing, but not all the time. Talking about documentaries, Cowspiracy, What the Health, and articles and advertisements have surfaced explaining the connection between diet and health. And the need for the ethical treatment of animals has also surfaced, especially by one organization, the main organization that follows and that advocates for animals to be ethically treated. And that is PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. They have gained adherents in the last couple of years, both members and companies, which are seeking to treat animals as creatures that deserve respect. And as the meat industry, laboratories, and clothing companies continue to reduce the standards of animal care, they decrease the time of slaughter, they continue to disregard the killing of animals in danger of extinction, PETA and animal rights movements gain ground. Moreover, the advent of social media and the widespread use of it in society has contributed towards showing the atrocities that human beings are perpetrating upon domesticated and non-domesticated animals, raising awareness and consciousness about the treatment of animals. Now, that's a little bit of the background, right? Where we are here in 2018, where we found ourselves, the landscape of today's understanding. There's a lot of awareness. Some people are taking notice of it. There's the global warming bubble and a lot of other things that are kind of making us see that we need to take care of the environment, ourselves, through diet, exercise, and also advocating for animals. Now, how is this connected to Adventism? How are animal rights connected to Adventism? How is Adventism connected to veganism and the ethical treatment of creatures? Well, let me first start by saying that Adventism is a movement of peace. It's a movement that emphasizes peace with everyone, and especially with humans. So the first connection is that we seek peace. The demonstrations in the 19th century, the activist stance of Adventists against slavery, for the abolition of slavery, the belief that we are supposed to be non-combatant cooperators in the military, and the demonstration of living in harmony with others by following the ethical rules of not killing or not inciting violence, and also restoring others to the best that they can be through education, I think are a testament of the ideals and of the way in which the Adventist movement has shown and has tried to restore the peace with the world. Also, I think that further, a connection is that as Adventists, we seek to be in peace with the environment and with our own bodies, with ourselves, through the ideal of, wherever possible, eating the best possible diet. As Adventists, I think we believe and we hold that the best possible diet is the plant-based diet. And this plant-based diet, I think there are many studies showing today that, again, wherever it's possible to eat this, you will have all the necessary nutrients that you need in your body. So having peace with one another and having peace with yourself, with your own body, are kind of the starting principles that allow Adventism to be in connection and to look for the ethical treatment of animals. A second point, I believe, is that Adventism seeks this peace not only with other human beings and with ourselves, but it seeks this peace to be with nature. I think we are mindful of the environment in which we live, and we treat it in such a way that it flourishes. That's our ideal. That's what we're looking for. And we want this environment to flourish for our current use and also for future generations. The spiritual practice of Adventism, I think it challenges us to take care of the land, to take care of the animals, and to take care of the whole creation by giving them rest through the Sabbath, feeding them, and making them grow. Adventism, I think, strives to not assassinate any form of life and to prosper the environment in which we live. It is not only about keeping it with the status quo, but to making it prosper in the same way that we prosper with our bodies, in the same way that we prosper with one another. I think that Adventism is also seeking nature to prosper. Adventism also affirms that animals are creation. And this is a very important connection because it allows us to understand that animals deserve respect. They are ours. They were given to us. We believe that we have this dominion over them in order to take care of them, not to take advantage. As innocent living beings that they are, animals don't have a conscience. We are to guide them and to let them live freely. But not only there, but also we are to cooperate with them, right? We can use animals. We can not use in a utilitarian way, but to cooperate, to have this partnership with animals in order to make a better world. I mean, we have agriculture, for example, where we can cooperate with animals without having to harm them. We believe that the cooperation with animals is in order to help them, in order to make them grow, not to rule over them. It is to treat them in such a way that we can dignify them. We treat animals in a similar, not the same way, but a similar way in which we treat humans. If we don't treat humans with respect, how can we treat animals with respect? I think that as Adventists, we hold this ideal. We hold this belief that animals should be treated in a similar way that we treat humans. Dignity, respect, love, taking care of them, making them flourish. I think one of the books that I remember reading, Vegangelical by Sarah King, makes a very strong argument. She shows throughout the book that as humans, we have a special blessing. And this blessing is to have dominion over the earth, to show the earth respect. But this dominion is not to be tyrants over creation, but to help them achieve their full potential. This dominion that we have been given, that we have been entrusted, it's also a blessing. She goes on to kind of show that we have taken apart animals out of the whole process of flourishing. We have just used them in an utilitarian way, in the same way that we have used other people, sadly, as humans. And I think that as Adventists, we stand for the ethical treatment of people, for the ethical treatment of animals, because they are creation, because they are part of God's blessing to us. So I think that those are some of the connections that Adventism has. Now, I think the last connection that Adventism has with this conversation of ethical treatment for animals is that we want to live happy lives, not only for ourselves, not only for other humans, but also for the whole of creation. We seek to bond with animals. I remember having dogs and running with them. Sure, it was not the same thing to run with kids, to go play at the block with soccer balls or basketballs, but it was a similar experience. I had this other creature that I ran around, tossed the ball, and that brought happiness to me. And this happiness was brought because I was sharing, and the dog, I think, was sharing that happiness that he had with me. It's sharing and giving, exchanging. Because happiness is something that you can only experience when you share it. Another book, a great book, Into the Wild, Christopher McCandless said, happiness only real when shared. I think that when we share our joy with other creatures, we ourselves become happier and healthier. And when we share with other humans, that increases our joy. When we share with animals, it does a similar thing. It makes us happy. So the connection of treating animals ethically is because we like to bring happiness into the world. Now, these are ideals, these are principles, these are the things that I believe that Adventism has in its DNA. To treat people and creation ethically, to live in peace, to make things flourish, to always be happy and share that happiness with others. And as principles, they usually stay in that realm. So we're going to follow up with a discussion on our following podcast. And we're going to talk about with avid runner and animal lover Paul Anthony Turner on some practical ways and maybe a couple of extra ideas that we need to have about this ethical treatment of animals. We will cover the topic again, maybe a little more in depth through a conversation, and see how we can start practicing this lifestyle in a meaningful way so that the whole of creation sees that as Adventists, we seek its flourishing. That's our conclusion for today's podcast. Thank you for listening. I hope that we have intrigued you a little bit and that you decide to stay around for future podcasts. If you have any comments, feedback, or a topic you would like us to discuss, please go to our website at www.disruptiveadventism.org or shoot us an email to disruptiveadventism@gmail.com. We're eager to engage in discussions about any matter, so don't hesitate to contact us. As an announcement, before we go, we also want to let you know that we're on all major podcasting apps: iTunes, Google Play, Pocket Cast, Stitcher. We're on all of them. So please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the monologues and conversations that we'll be having here on Disruptive Adventism. This has been it for today. Thank you for joining us, and I hope that you join us next time as we discuss the topic of animal care with Paul Anthony Turner. Thanks again, and as always, we invite you to be disruptive.